Do you want to know exactly how to fill out and explain the buyer's representation agreement as well as the associated addendum to all of your buyers? If so, you'll absolutely love this video, so keep watching. Hey, what's up? I'm Brandon Melvin, Realtor and Team Leader. I help coach other realtors, team leaders, and brokers on how to grow and scale their real estate business through creative and innovative digital marketing, content creation for social media, as well as tried and true methods to have your business work harder for you than you do for it. If you want proven strategies that you can use to get more leads, close more deals, and scale your team, you'll absolutely love this channel and this video. Now, after watching this video and you have any further questions and you'd like for me to maybe help walk you through some of these documents, go ahead, check the description below. I do have a link for a free personal coaching call that we can take that one-on-one. Now, before we get into this, let me just say anything that I do tell my clients is not legal advice, and I must advise them to speak to a real estate attorney if they would like any elaboration or any real explanation of these documents. So you should probably do the same just to make sure that you're covered. Okay, so I usually will take care of all these documents in Zipforms, so it's really easy to populate the information for all of my clients. So I do use the transaction cover sheet, and most of the time I will have this in a template, so you can make it a whole lot easier for your life in making these documents populated with all the correct information. If you are with EXP, currently, this is the information that we're using, so feel free to review and copy that if you need to. And then you want to put your information down here in this bottom section, as well as your license number in both of these, and it will populate on all of the other documents that we're going to use. That's pretty much the gist of this specific document when filling out the buyer's representation agreement and associated addendum with it. Don't typically need to have this section filled out as well. Now, if you do happen to have a contract that you want to put in at the same time, then you can revisit these pieces of information here to implement that into the documents as well, make it easier. But currently, we do not have that, just filling out the buyer's representation information. So we move to the next document. This is your information about broker services. So very important. You want to definitely give this to each and every one of your prospective customers, and that way they have all the information that is required from us to give to them. And this explains a little bit about the duties that us as real estate agents and brokers have to provide for our clients, and the different ways that we can represent them, such as if they're a seller, if they're a buyer, or a renter, or for both. Now, we don't do the intermediary status, as in if I represented the buyer here and I also had the listing, I'm not going to represent both in the same purchase, so I would have to relinquish the ability to represent one or the other, and then another agent within the same brokerage would be representing the other party. That way each party is represented fairly. Now, moving on to the bottom here, you would want to have all of this information filled out correctly. Have your brokerage name and information on the first line, your designated broker of the firm, as well as your supervisor. In this case, they happen to be the same person, and then your information all the way at the bottom. The next document I usually present to my customers and clients will be this one. It is the Consumer Protection Notice. Long story short, it's if there's anything that goes wrong with the transaction, this is where you would go and file a complaint, and this is the address for Texas Real Estate Commission, so that way if they wanted to write any kind of information or call, this is where they would reach out to. But hopefully you and I are doing such a great job that this never happens, and that's the ultimate goal, is to have our happy clients in the end buy or sell. So this document here is pretty much the meat and potatoes of everything that we're doing. So let's jump into this one. It is the Residential Buyer Tenant Representation Agreement. This paragraph 1 is where the client's information is going to go, so make sure that's filled out appropriately, all the contact information. This second part of that one is going to be the brokerage information. Make sure you have all that filled out correctly as well. This is the current information for eXp Realty at this moment, and then the phone number, as well as putting your email in here. That will take care of that one. Just going over these paragraphs here, it talks about appointments, definitions. This is where I'm going to represent most of my clients, and so in the templates that I have, it automatically populates that in there. If anyone wants to look outside those areas, I will obviously add that so that I can legally represent them in the market area that they're searching for. As for the term, you'll want to fill this out from this day, and I usually put 6 to 12 months. For buyers right now in this market, hopefully you get a deal under contract and wrap things up within 6 months, but I'll put 12 for the most part. If someone has an issue with that, then I'll bring it back down to 6 and let them know that whenever we do help them find a property and purchase on it, this contract is terminated, it's fulfilled. And so if they wanted to buy anything else, another home, an investment property, or anything like that, we'd have to fill out another agreement for me to be able to do that for them. Now, if at any time they're not happy with the service that I'm providing, then I let all my clients know, hey, look, this is just allowing me to represent you. If you're unhappy, let's talk. Let's figure out what I can do better. And if we can't figure this out, then I'll release you. I don't have any issues with that because, I want a happy client. I don't want any issues in the end. And if you're doing your job, then you pretty much don't have to worry about that. So, and you want to make sure it's a smooth and fun transaction. If you're not having fun doing what you're working and living for, it's just maybe move on, find another client. So that's just my advice. Broker's obligations, again, we kind of talked about a little bit of that with the IABS clients as well. The representations of each party, and then the intermediary status. That's where I kind of spend a little bit more for time on that one, just to letting them know about how that works. And with the brokerage, again, appointing different agents in different situations there. And then once you do get into a contract, if there is an actual intermediary status, just know that you will need another document representing or notifying the buyer and seller that this is an intermediary deal, and they have to sign on that again. Moving down a little further, I touch on confidential information, letting them know that anything that they say to me, it's confidential, and so I'm going to make sure that whatever I can do to help them get the best deal on this property, whatever it is that they're going to purchase, that information that they tell me is only for me and not for anyone else. Broker's fees. Now, typically in our market here, the selling side is going to pay the commission, and I explain that to my clients, let them know, hey, a lot of times the sellers, the way that it's structured here, they're going to compensate, the seller's agent is going to compensate me for representing them and bringing you, my buyer, to make this deal happen. Now, sometimes that won't happen. If, for example, maybe it's a for sale by owner. Now, a lot of times you can, as the real estate agent, negotiate and talk to the for sale by owner and say, hey, look, if I bring you a buyer, will you pay my commission? And most of the time they'll say yes. And sometimes it might be a little less than what I'm charging here at 3%. Now, I'm not going to go to my buyer client and say, hey, look, I need you to make up the 0.5% or the percent or whatever it might be, because in the end, I want them to have the best transaction possible and get the best deal. But I would really rather prefer them send me all their family and friends as referrals so that I can help more clients get into homes and things of that nature. So I tell them, look, this will allow me to do that if necessary, but in the end, I'm really not going to ask you for that because I care about you sending me more business ultimately. So, but we do put that there in case there is the need for it. And then obviously going into a little more details about when it's earned and payable and things of that nature. Now, if they do a new construction, then I put the compensation there that I'm looking for, which in this case is 3%, and then all this other information talking about service providers and anything other that you need to put in there. Most of the time it's nothing. Protection period. Now, this is, for instance, if you you're working with your client and they you show them a property and they like it, but then for some odd reason they don't want to use you at that point. You are saying that in this contract there's a 90-day protection period to where you can actually go back to that seller and in this contract and claim that, hey, I'm the procuring clause and I deserve my compensation for it. Moving on, we'll go down to here about 12, 13, 14, 15. Typically kind of let all the clients know that while we're going out and showing these properties and we find something hopefully to put a contract on. If anything goes wrong, go through mediation first, and then talking about where the attorney's fees come from and the limitation of liability. Definitely want to read this to them, have them read this, and point out that, especially, when you're going through properties and looking at them, any losses or injuries from doing so, we're not liable. And so that kind of explains that liability. Paragraph 16 here, this will change from time to time. It just really depends on, all of the documents that you do have to bring to the buyer. For instance, if they're going to look at a property that has a lead-based paint situation, you'll mark that in there. And then flood hazards and some special other addendum here that you want to add to it when necessary. We'll go over these documents here as well. Special provisions, most of the time you'll never want to mess with this. There are very few occasions, so try and leave that one alone if at all possible. Any additional notices, again, it's bold there. Definitely make sure your clients will read all of this stuff to make sure they're fully understanding it. And if they have any questions on those paragraphs there, anything with this document, for the most part there, you want to, again, refer them to a real estate attorney to, again, right here, that says it right there, black and white, to give legal advice, okay? Unless you're a real estate attorney yourself, refer them out. And then you'll want the brokerage information here, broker's license number, your broker's associate signature goes here, and date, and then your name printed. Okay, so now we'll touch on some of the associated addenda that will most likely be attached. The first one I typically will speak to them about is the general information and notice to buyers and sellers. This basically will help educate a first-time home buyer or refresh someone of the terminology having to do with real estate and purchasing a home, talking about annexation, appraisal process, how that works, brokers, environmental concerns, and things of that nature that they may or may not be aware of. Moving down here, some of this stuff applies to property, some of it doesn't, so you want to make sure you point things of that nature out when they do come across them. Stuff like I'm always going to recommend my clients get an inspection to make sure the property is up to par and there's nothing that we need to negotiate. If there is, a lot of times there is, and so we're going to kind of work on getting that property in the proper condition. So I'll explain that. Sometimes they have HOAs, so you want to make sure they know that. Mineral rights, if they're looking to buy land, that's important. Moving down here, when they're going to possess the property, insurance, and how that's going to help them, property values. Just really want to help them understand the school boundaries. Here's a really cool website, greatschools.org. If someone's asking you about questions having to do with the school and, is this a good school? Where are the schools at? I would direct them there so that they can get their own information. Sometimes the property has a septic on there, so you'll have a septic inspection. I'll recommend that as well. Any questions having to do with sex offenders and criminal activity, direct them to this website here. Really good stuff, helping them understand, again, the whole process having to deal with when they're purchasing a home. And so we have a couple other documents here that we'll go over as well. You want to make sure your broker's information is here, and you would sign and date that as well, and then have your clients do the same. This one's pretty quick and easy, and kind of touched on it earlier. For your protection, get a home inspection. Tells them a little bit of information as to why it's going to be very important for them to get a home inspection. This one doesn't actually have a spot for them to sign or initial, so I'll just have them initial down here at the bottom. Okay, this document, most of the time I actually don't have my clients fill this out and sign it unless I know ahead of time that they're not going to have a home inspection. And so I want to make sure I'm protected. So in that case, I will make sure that all of this is filled out and that they check this, I choose not to hire an inspector, and then obviously sign and date and keep this on file in case anything were to come up saying, my real estate agent, they didn't, advise me to have a home inspection. Well, clearly, yes, you decided not to here, but most of the time they do, and it is absolutely beneficial for them to protect their investment, in my opinion. Here we have the disclosure of relationship with residential service company. So if your brokerage has anything like this, then you'll be familiar with it. We at eXp Realty, we do. Whether you're on the buying side or the selling side, you need to allow your clients to understand that if they did choose the home warranty, America's preferred home warranty, our brokerage will get compensation for marketing purposes. So they need to understand that. on both sides. And then you would also have the other side, if you're working with the buyer, have the listing agent be aware of this as well. Now you really want to do everything you possibly can to have them and their clients sign and get this back to you. If they don't, then you can't help that, but you need to prove that you have attempted to get this information from them and notify them. So this document is used when you do have a contract or you're putting a contract in on a property. You want to have the address here and the date. This just explains to them the affiliated business arrangements that we do have and discloses them and everything of that nature. So you want to make sure they're aware, and then have your client sign and print here. All right, y'all, we're almost done. A couple documents left, and then we'll wrap this up. But this document here is speaking about wire fraud advisory. This is very real. It is a multi-billion-dollar fraud industry, and so you have to let your clients know that it is real. If they want some more information on it, go ahead and check these websites out. But be very careful when you're wiring money out or receiving it, okay? And then you want to have them date it and sign that as the buyers in this specific case. Now, most of the time, you're not going to use this document unless the property is built before 1978. And you can clearly see here the lead warning statement. The sellers will have filled this out here, what the information is that they have, and then your buyer will go through and check whether they've received it or not. And then you obviously want to present them the pamphlet as well, and then everyone's going to sign. You're going to sign, the buyer's going to sign, the seller's going to sign, and the listing agent's going to sign. And that will just make sure that they're very well aware that this home potentially could have lead-based paint in it. Now, this is going to be your lead-based paint pamphlet. You absolutely need to give this to your client when dealing with a lead-based paint potential home, and it explains a lot of information about the scenario and the situation and all of the hazards having to do with that potential scenario. You want to have them initial. I have my clients initial the top page as well as the bottom page, so that I have the best opportunity for them to read everything in between. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the day. I hope this video helped. If it did, please do me a huge favor, give me a like, and then subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're the first to learn about all the great content I put out. Now, as you know, we at the Melvin Group put out great content here to help you as an agent, team leader, or broker grow and scale your real estate business. If you'd like to partner with us to help take it to the next level, check the description below. I have a link to help you get that process started. Until next time, go out there and sell some homes.